A real turning point for me was when I learned to stop trying to do everything myself. I think we're seeing less appetite for having multiple locations, for growing beyond a level that you can contain, because now practices and doctors have to look at, am I going to have the staff for this? But if your mindset is the sky is falling and everything is just going to get worse, nothing's ever going to improve, I don't think you're going to probably wake up many days motivated to do the things you need to do.
This is Optometrists Building Empires, and I'm your host, Ankit Patel. Each week, we'll explore the journey of practice ownership and leadership in optometry. Join us for insights and strategies from the top minds in our field. This show is sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team helps your office increase revenues, reduce costs, and reduce staffing headaches. Let's build your empire together. Today's guest is a good friend I'm happy to introduce you to. He's an optometrist, consultant, author, and nationally recognized speaker who has become one of the leading voices in independent optometry practice management. He's completed more than 3,000 consultations and coaching sessions with practices across the country, helping doctors strengthen leadership skills, improve team performance, and build healthier, more profitable businesses. He lectures at major industry conferences, writes regularly for top eye care publications, and has 4 written books that focus on the skills and behaviors that separate thriving practices from struggling ones. He is optometric practice management consultant with iDoc. Please welcome Dr. Steve Vargo. Steve, welcome.
Hey, Ankit, how you doing? Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. I'm glad we were able to get you on the podcast. I know I've been on yours a couple of times, so I appreciate you coming on here and sharing some of your wisdom.
Role reversal here.
Yeah, it's fun. So you have a unique position. And I'm going to ask you this first question. I want you to answer it as a doctor yourself or as a consultant, whatever you think makes most sense. So the first question is, what was the most important thing that helped you grow your empire?
Well, it's an interesting question. I guess that's a little subjective. I feel like I'm still building an empire. Um, but I appreciate the question. And Ankit, I would answer that by saying a real turning point for me was when I learned to stop trying to do everything myself. And if I go back to my days as an OD in a dark room, feeling very isolated, trying to learn everything on my own, 10 years ago when I transitioned into a world of consulting and I suddenly found myself surrounded by people that could help me, that had insights that I didn't have and had unique knowledge, and I was able to brainstorm with them and grab their ideas. It really changed the way I think about getting ahead at anything and really taught me a lesson about leaning into other people. So I would actually credit other people for my success in whatever, realm that means, but really the knowledge to lean into other people. And it sounds so obvious, but somebody once told me you go a lot farther as a team than you do by yourself. And I think we know that, but I really had to learn that, but through experience, I think.
So tell me about a story where you learned in the school of hard knocks. Like tell me about a story that was actually like, oh, wish I had a team at that point.
Yeah. Well, so if I look at some of the most common issues I deal with working with doctors, and you could take something as simple as staff management, one of the biggest pain points that doctors have. And I dealt with a lot of that when I practiced. You've got staff conflict, you've got hiring, you've got staff training, and a lot of things fall through the cracks. So the ability, I think, to be able to, and I see this differently now as a consultant, where people will reach out and ask for questions and insight. And I look back now and wish I would have had a team around me, whether that was a consultant, whether that was a mentor, whether that was just being more active in communities and groups where I could get other people's feedback. But that was a challenge. I experienced that. I think would have been so much there would have been so much less friction had I just known this basic thing to not try to figure out everything on my own.
I like that. And so as you see people growing their businesses and as you grew your own practice when you're in practice, um, can you tell me something that people run into or you ran into that either but that was unexpected, right? They're like, oh, I didn't expect that as I was growing my business or in practice for so long.
Yeah, I think a lot of the leadership components. It's the things they don't teach in school, right? They teach you to be a good clinician, but you're caught off guard with almost everything else, right? They have very little training around leadership, around financials, around goal setting, around staff management, all the things that you need to deliver, as you know, as a business owner, to to be able to succeed in the business world. And all that transcends into your ability to deliver the highest level of patient care as well. It's a bit of a, I don't think it's a bit ironic when people say that I don't really like the business side. I just want to work on the clinical side. I just want to care for my patients. But it's hard to provide the best care for your patients if you're not mindful of the business side.
Yeah. I think that's really insightful. Yeah, it's so true. It's like, hey, everything that you didn't never heard about is catches you off guard because you didn't talk about it in school. What are some of the common points that you see that aren't discussed in school? You talked about leadership. What are some other things that are taught that you ran into or see people run into that aren't talked about?
I think the how to deal with how to balance your life for one thing. And I think anyone who owns a business will understand this, that it's very difficult to put in the hours it takes to run a successful practice and still have time for the other things, still have time for your family, your friends, the kind of outside activities that you want to do. And what I hear a lot is, especially these days, is burnout. A lot of practices dealing with burnout. So I don't know if I'm directly answering the question, but working toward a model where the business is not completely dependent on you. Working toward we can dig deeper into that as well, but having good management in place, having good systems in place, and ultimately working toward replacing yourself to some degree. If you want to see patients 6 days a week, see patients 6 days a week. Most practice owners I talk to don't necessarily want to do that. So the ability to hire to replace yourself to some degree, bring in an associate. And I try to encourage a lot of people to keep that vision alive. What do you want to do? I think some owners stop dreaming, right? I think they have a vision on day one, and then they get caught into the day to day, and they get caught into the grind of operating a business, and they kind of forget why they're doing this in the first place. So sometimes it's rewarding for me just to help people regain clarity on what they want, and I always try to take a holistic view with people. It's not just the business; it's what kind of life do you want to build as well, and let's see if we can start to put together a plan that gets you there.
Yeah, I like that. And, it's, I think I've heard that very common factor that people join optometry for that, yes, you can make a decent living, you can take care of people, and you can have a decent lifestyle, right? And so it's funny that that's what you see with practice ownership is that piece is hard to define. What is it that, why do you see, what's a common theme or characteristic or why do you see people wanting to grow? Why do you see them wanting to expand? Because you could easily just be like, "Oh, I'm happy seeing my however many patients a week. I don't really have to do anything more." Talk to me about the psychology of what you see around people who want to grow.
Not everybody does. I think things are changing a little bit, and whether we look at this for the better or for the worse, I think there was uh, probably a more aggressive mindset prior to COVID. And we experienced a few things after COVID. Largely, staffing became a big issue. And I don't want to paint with a broad brush here because there's still a lot of practices that want to grow. I think you should aspire for growth. I think that's a good thing because that's how you pay your staff. That's how you continue it to invest in the practice. I think we're seeing less appetite for having multiple locations, for growing beyond a level that you can contain, because now practices and doctors have to look at, am I going to have the staff for this? Not just people, but am I going to be able to handle the systems and the training that go along with it? As I grow, am I going to be able to hire an associate? One of the biggest challenges right now is trying to find associate ODs. So, interestingly, probably seeing more practices look at, I don't want to say that they're not trying to grow, but doing the making the most of what they have at their location. We've probably seen more practices look at dropping vision plans, if not all, some, and leaning further into specialty care. So they're acknowledging to some degree that if they don't feel comfortable being able to scale at a large level, that how do we make the best of what we have with the staff that we have, the systems in place, and a realistic ability to grow at a level we're comfortable with.
Yeah. And and when you wrote 4 books, right? I'm curious, what were the topics of your 4 books?
The topics were staff, no surprise, the same things we're talking about here, staff management, leadership, and I dug into the world of sales as well. Try to pitch that in a way that's, um, I reference the term non-sales selling in that book a lot, where, how can we get comfortable with the term, but in a way that feels comfortable for both the people who are doing the selling and for the people that are being sold to.
And curious, I like how I think that's a very good call out, what you just did there with like, "Hey, I see these are challenges. This is how I think we can do this." Um, I if you were to tie a thread in, because like financials is another one that you don't learn about in OD school, right? You don't learn about how to manage books. Why did you decide to focus on those skills versus like financial or other skills that they could have that other people don't know about as they grow their businesses?
Well, for starters, I don't like math, Ankit.
Fair enough.
So
Yeah.
let's go there. No, as a lot of you may know, the company I work with, iDoc, we have a really good financial advisor. So I've actually leaned on him for a lot of the financials, but I've learned a lot from him as well. So I don't have to go to him quite as much these days. But Nathan Hayes is one of the top in the industry at that, and it is a great question. Interestingly, I actually started writing my first book with it wasn't I didn't intend it to be a book. I was just starting to put together a manual on how to better manage staff because I started to realize that these are difficult conversations to cover everything on a 30-minute or a 60-minute phone consultation. And as I just started writing, I realized I like to write, and I was able to tell stories and start to weave things together. And I found it really fun. And the more I wrote, I started to get a feeling that, hey, I might have a book here if I keep doing this. But it was basically just a recognition of the struggles of management leadership. And I really started to see the problems with what I call a leadership void. So practice owners would call in all the time with these issues that I could so often stem back to a leadership issue, that there's nobody in charge. There's nobody managing the team. There's nobody driving growth. And without that, you basically, that what is it? It's how things are being run by the prisoners, asylum, whatever that term is, that's what it seems like. So you can't just pass it. You asked a great question before. Why did practices want growth? And again, I said maybe that's been tempered back a little bit, but I think everyone should aspire to continue to grow on some level. I mean, you want people to you want word of mouth. You want all the things coming in that's going to drive that growth. But without leadership in place, it it's challenging. You need somebody leading the team.
Gotcha. Um, so talk to me a little bit about some of the things that if a doctor is listening to this, they feel like, okay, I want leadership. Where can they go for support? Outside of, coming to you, reaching out to iDoc, other places like that. Like, what are some skills that they would want to learn and where can they find them? If they like, give me your best, like, hey, if I don't know you, here's where I would start type advice.
Well, it's seriously not a plug for my book, but I did write a book on leadership. It's called Eye on Leadership, specifically designed for eye care practitioners. And basically, what I did, it's pretty basic. It's not overly esoteric. It's taking the basic things that I saw, and there's basically 5 things that I would see repeatedly in offices that 90% of the time I could trace it back to one of those 5 things. So that was written specifically. And man, that's one book. There's I mean, search leadership books on Amazon, and there's probably 480,000. Find the good ones, get book recommendations. If someone wants to reach out to me, I can tell them there's podcasts out there. Here's the thing I would recommend: just keep learning. You're not going to learn it at one seminar. You're not going to learn it from one book. But if you step into that leadership role or ownership role, continue to learn. about things like leadership, things like sales, things like finances. It's changing. There's always something new to learn. And I will tell you that the most successful doctors I work with did not get there overnight. They're not smarter than most other doctors. They don't have some magical ability to create a thriving practice, but a unique quality is they're constantly learning and constantly trying to get better. And that quality will take you pretty far in anything. So that's what I would encourage you to do.
Okay. That's interesting. And as far as, let's talk about some of the challenges and how you're seeing people kind of combat them right now. Um, Staffing is a big challenge. Either managing staff, having staff understaffed, staff's getting expensive. What are you seeing, and how are you seeing people uh, work through that and support that, and still have a business that they can have maintain a lifestyle, maintain profitability, maintain a sense of sanity?
So the staffing issue is an interesting one, and that's it's probably the biggest challenge before COVID, and COVID seemed to elevate that challenge. There just became what appears to be fewer people in the workplace, and the ones that are out there want more money. The positive of this is I think it forced a lot of practices to figure out how to operate more lean and more efficient, right? Something that they didn't traditionally have to spend as much time thinking about, but suddenly when you need 6 employees and you've only got 4 or 5, how do we do this? It forced them to really have some thoughtful moments with them, with their staff. How do we do this? How do we operate more lean, more efficiently to be able to provide the level of care we need to be able to provide with potentially fewer people? As you know, there's also a shift, a trend moving toward more virtual assistants. You're obviously very familiar with that area. And I think we're starting to see AI slowly but surely work its way into the operational side of things. And I think that's a great technology. People are some still, it's early stages and a lot of uncertainty around that and what that means and what that looks like. But when you dip your foot in that water, you'll start to discover some, I think, great ways to utilize that technology to operate more efficiently. So I would say that's there's some of the things that offices are doing to operate with fewer people, and staff is your number one asset. It's difficult. It is so challenging to be able to do what you need to do without the adequate number of team members, whether it's high turnover or you just can't find them, or from a budgetary standpoint, maybe you just office can't afford um, the number of staff it takes to operate at a high level.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. You mentioned AI, and we're very neck deep into that as well. And one of the things that was really interesting to me is that you touched on a theme of learning. Um, AI gives you whole new tools that never even existed before. So now we're actually in our offices and with some of our clients who are looking at how do we reinvent the whole patient flow with AI. So, one of the things that we're looking at right now is, hey, we have information on the type of information that the client or the patient needed. We could literally take that information, make it HIPAA compliant, of course, and make sure it's secure, uh, and make sure it's protected, and turn it into a custom website for them that they can just go to at any time, right? And that's where you could automate that right now, and we actually have portions of that automated already. So there's whole new ways of like thinking about it, and so it's not always about what we find. It's not always about saving more money, like on labor. It's also about how do we increase that experience? How do we make it a better experience? How do we get increased revenues from patients, but do it in a way that is value add. And so things like that tend to help with like conversion of like dry eye treatments and things like that. And so, yeah, I'm super excited about that myself. And I like how you said like using a lot of different tools to try to tackle the problem. Because you have to use what's right for you and what you're comfortable. Not everyone's comfortable with that level of detail.
Yeah, and it's a great point. There's so many applications of AI, and it's just technology in general. I mean, obviously the buzz is artificial intelligence right now, but just technology in general. But I think it's important to make sure that we keep the focus on the patient, just like you said. And I think that's where some doctors get scared off is when we start to focus on technology at the center.
Right.
And then where the doctors get pushed, we kind of get pushed off to the side. But if you just flip that around, and I think we have to do that intentionally, is look at it from the human at the center. And the human, it could mean the doctors, it could mean our staff, it can certainly mean the patient. How does technology allow us to regain our focus on patients? Because we're losing that. And we're losing that. We're losing that because we don't have enough staff, and we're losing it because all the administrative responsibilities, and we're losing it because we're staring at an EHR instead of making eye contact with the patient. So I'm really interested and starting to put more thought into how do we use all this technology to get that back. Doctors got into this to care for patients, not deal with all this other stuff that we're having to. So the technology can either work for you, it could work against you. Some of it is mindset, and some of it is just learning how to use it in the right way.
Yeah, I like that. Um, so tell me a little bit about what you're excited about in the future for optometry, private practice, in the field in general. I'm sure there's a lot, but what are some of the big things that you're thinking like this is something that coming up on the horizon, maybe even this year, and some things down the road?
Well, I mean, I guess the big thing now, we just continue on that is AI is something that we're looking at, and I've been keeping a close eye on how it's used both clinically and operationally. So I don't want to drill too far into the AI issue, but if you ask the question, what am I excited about right now? My whole thing is always been about how do we provide a better experience for the patient that's going to drive better outcomes. I mean, candidly, as a consultant, my job is to help you be more successful. It's to help you grow your practice. It's to help you make more revenue. It's to help you accomplish your goals, which might be not having to see patients 5 days a week. It's looking at what you want. And it's been a real challenge the last several years for a variety of things that have challenged the ability to do that for doctors. So this new technology, and I know it's been around for a while, but the LLMs are relatively new, but really looking at what they can accomplish both from a clinical standpoint and an operational standpoint, I think is really going to make things interesting over the next few years.
Hmm, I like that. Um, I'm curious with let's take a step back and look at your practice as a consultant and coach. Um, top three things that successful people do that all they have in common, whether it's like a Medicaid office, Costco leases, full scope, multiple location practices, whatever modality they're practicing. What are the top three things that you see the most successful people do?
Number one, they fail a lot
Okay.
because they're just constantly trying new things and experimenting, which is really validated by a lot of businesses have discovered that I get an MBA, and part of that MBA, we had to write a business plan. And the whole time I was writing it, I just kept thinking, this just seems like a waste of time because how would we possibly know all these estimations and all these predictions? And as it turns out, I may have been onto something there because we're in a time now where a lot of businesses, companies have discovered that typically the product you end up with is not the one you started with, and a lot of times not even anything near it. It came through a lot of iterations, a lot of failing, and learning from that failure. So a lot of companies now, like Google, I forget how many, like 50,000. They run a huge number of experiments every year on purpose to find out what works and what doesn't. And what they find is only a less than 10% of those experiments actually succeed.
Yeah.
Okay. Which tells me that the value of always trying new things where other doctors are sitting on the sidelines, you're going to fail. There's no way around it, but fail on a small scale. Keep trying things, keep experimenting, keep testing, keep observing the kind of results you get. Stop doing the things that aren't working and double down on the things that are. I would say something I mentioned before too, that most successful doctors are constantly learning. They're thirsty for knowledge. They come to our meetings. They're constantly learning things from other people. They're reading books. They're listening to podcasts. They're constantly adding to their knowledge bank, and those skills accumulate over time that allow you to continue to continue to do the things you need to do to succeed. And you caught me off guard here on a third one. I would say just a willingness to invest,
Okay.
a willingness to spend the money on your practice, hopefully thoughtfully, but at the same time, You have to invest in the technology infrastructure staffing. Some doctors are real hesitant to spend the money on things and they stay very small, but that some of it is just taking a gamble on yourself.
I like that. And now I'm going to ask another question. That we talk about, that's what I call root cause of success. There's also root cause of failure. What do you see common traits in people who, no matter what they do or try, they're just stuck? And they've been stuck for a long time, and they're not overcoming their stuckness. What are some of the traits that you see there? I won't ask you for three there. Just maybe whatever, however many traits you can think that are common.
Mindset.
Mindset. Okay, say more.
Okay. You go on social media and you look at how much negativity there is. Okay. And I get it. I vent too sometimes. I complain about things too sometimes. But if your mindset is the sky is falling and everything is just going to get worse, nothing's ever going to improve. Why did I get into this profession? I don't think you're going to probably wake up many days motivated to do the things you need to do. A different mindset would be not some Pollyanna perspective on things where everything is always rainbows and unicorns. The different mindset is the ability to look at things and say, oh, that's challenging. That's interesting. How do I got a problem here. How do I find a solution to it? And when you wake up with that mentality, the world will change. Optometry will change. There will be new challenges. But when you look at them as challenges, okay, there's something new coming down the road here. How do we put together a plan to navigate this change or to be able to compete? Maybe it's a new competitor moves into town. Maybe it's has something to do with you can come up with a variety of things, but having more of a competitive mindset on these things, I guess to circle back to your question, the inability to do that, I think having a real negative mindset doesn't serve you well. You'll be miserable. Just stop doing it because it's going to keep you in it's going to keep you in a place where you're not seeing growth.
Yeah, I like that. And with that, I think that seems to be a consistent theme of learning and adapting, and mindsets kind of fit into that. I would imagine if I had to reframe it, growth mindset almost versus a fixed
Yeah,
mindset.
first a fixed mindset. Yeah, that's it right there.
I think you hear a lot of times fixed mindset are looking for reasons why it can't happen. Growth
Mhm.
mindset says, "How can I make it happen?" Aside, even though I'm going through some tough stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
And nothing's unique to optometry. I mean, there's businesses all over that continue to compete despite changing circumstances and the environment changing. But what they have is people who get together in a room and say, okay, let's put together a strategic plan to succeed under these conditions. And that's what we have to do in optometry. And I think it goes, all this ties together, right? Because it's the same, how do we do that? You don't do it by yourself. You find a team, you find colleagues, you find a consultant, you go to AI. I mean, there's all kinds of sources out there. Now you keep learning, but I would just say do not try to figure all this out by yourself. But things change. You'll be fine. And which I think that mindset again of just the ability to look at conditions and say, okay, it is what it is. Let's put together a plan to navigate this is a much healthier mindset for business than the alternative.
gotcha. I like that. Um, so let's shift gears a little bit. I want to know what makes Steve tick. Like, what makes you you? Uh, can you share with us a story that was formative that made you who you are today?
So I discovered something about myself when I transitioned from practicing OD to consultant is I had a creative side that I never knew I had. And I think I discovered it through speaking. And the first time I was asked to get up in front of a group of people, I was terrible at it, but I liked it. It was a thrill for me to get up and be able to teach others. I had to refine the art a lot. And I went to some speaking coaches and Toastmasters and all that stuff to get better at it. But I really found a passion in the work that went into creating that. And I feel the same way about writing articles, um, writing books. teaching a course, whatever it is, I really enjoy that side of it, and that's what gets me out of bed. So the analogy for that for a practicing OD would be find the things you really love to do. There's always going to be parts of your job, same with mine, that are the just kind of the routine. You have to do it. It's not your favorite thing. It doesn't get you excited. Every job has that. But what really gets you fired up? Try to find that. Maybe for you, it's dry eye. Maybe you love seeing patients. Maybe you'd rather run the business. You have a more of an entrepreneurial mindset. But whatever it is, for you, try to find that, and you'll enjoy your job so much more when you have that energy and that fuel doing the things you wanna do, and it's so apparent when you talk to an OD who has not found that, and they're just sort of stuck in the daily grind. You don't have to stay there. There's a lot of different avenues you could go down in the world of optometry, both from a clinical standpoint and a business standpoint, but keep searching if you haven't found it yet. For me, that was my I got an opportunity to do some things I never had a chance to do before, and I discovered some things that I really love. Podcasting. I love creating, and I love teaching, and, yeah, that's what makes Steve Vargo tick.
I like that, Steve. Thank you for sharing that. So last question I like to ask is, knowing what you know now, 1 week after you graduate OD school, what advice would you give to your younger self?
What advice would I give to the Steve Vargo who just walked out of optometry school?
Yeah.
I'd probably yell at him for not, for taking out the full loans and not saving more money along the way, but then after that, um, I would maybe share something I shared with my kids is just keep always trying to get 1% better. Over COVID, we had I started working out with the kids downstairs,
Mhm.
and they're younger then, but both, athletes, and I put up this little sign that said 1% better, and I'm sure they rolled their eyes when I put it up, but the premise was, you're not gonna see any kind of massive change from working out one time or even twice or anything else you do, but just if you stay consistent, keep trying to get 1% better, and I th I would tell a younger version of myself to not get too caught up in the sudden ups and downs, but just hang in there. It's very much a journey, it's not a sprint. Sometimes when you're down, things almost always turn around, and just keep your head high, keep doing the right thing, keep being a good person, a good doctor, good member of your family, wife, husband, dad, all that stuff, and and things will work out all right. I see a lot of stress and burnout with doctors, and I completely understand it. I was there, but it's been many years since I stepped out of, optometry school. So I would just say hang in there. Just keep pushing, keep getting up every day and just try to get 1% better at all aspects of it. Learn something new about the business, read a book, learn something new about the clinical side. It's just what can you do to constantly keep improving yourself? And those little, it's kind of like the stock market, right? There's ups and downs, but if you hang in there, historically, it almost always goes up. And I think you'll experience something similar in your professional and personal life if you take that outlook.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that insight. I know we have a few folks that are in optometry school or graduating soon, so I'm sure they'll appreciate that too. So, Steve, if people want to connect with you and find you, where can they find you?
I could give you my website. It is Dr. Steve Vargo. That's Dr. Steve Vargo.com. Pretty easy to find there. And I'm on all the socials. You could find me there. And I'd love to hear from you. If you want to chat, you have a question, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, and I think you'll also be at the Connections conference coming up in February of 2026. Is that right?
As will you, I
Yeah, I will
believe.
be there too. Yeah, it'll be fun. So
Yes, yes.
if they want to meet you in person, I think that'll be a fun place to meet up. So, well, Steve, thank you again for being a guest on the show.
I'm good. It's a pleasure. I feel like I got my mic here and headphones. It's like dueling podcast hosts. So,
Wow.
but yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, and one big takeaway I got from the conversation is it's about learning and learning cycles over perfection and fixed mindset. So growth and learning leads to success over and that'll overcome pretty much most of your challenges that you have. You could probably, with the right mindset and with the right approach to making sure you're learning and keep trying and iterating, you overcome a lot of challenges. So thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Yeah, and I will take that odds. There's those odds there if you do that. So thank you again.
Yeah. And thank you, audience. If you learned something or laughed, please share the podcast with a friend and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you see a meeting link in the bottom, if you set up a time to meet with me, I'll send you a free copy of my book as well, Optometry Redefined. Thank you again, Dr. Vargo, for being a guest. And this has been another exciting episode of Optometrists Building Empires. See you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Optometrists Building Empires. Thanks for joining. For show notes and more, visit buildingempires.live. This show is proudly sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team was born out of staffing challenges my wife and I faced together, managing multiple optometry locations. We refined our approach at Classic Vision Care and now offer our expertise to others. If you're experiencing challenges with staffing and you'd like to set up a discovery call, we'd be happy to help you and connect you with the right resources. We'll see you next time.